Missouri, but I'm not sure that you do, McGraw. So personally,
I am a Missouri guy. That's just how I was
Missouri
taught.
Too.
So,
oh my gosh. Well, I think that depends because you're here in St. Louis. I mean, if you can see the arch in any part of your monthly travels, then you would say Missouri. If you can't, you say Missouri.
well, you being a hillbilly from Butler County,
Yep.
you call it Missouri.
Of course, that's
There
how
you
it's
go.
supposed to be pronounced.
There you go. All right, so you've got some poll numbers for us.
I do. Right to work. It is. Yes, to keep it is 51-40. So it's tightening up a little bit. I think in the last couple weeks,
51-40.
51 voting no,
51
yes. I think we saw this. It's an interesting thing. There's not as much undecided on a yes/no. Labor was very smart to make it where you can vote no to side with them.
Right.
That people like to vote no on these things much more than they like to vote yes. But I think now you've seen they're actually running commercials. There's some kind of a campaign. They have a cop that was a pot activist that's come out and doing some commercials. This is before the John Goodman ad. I don't know what that'll do, but it can't hurt labor.
Right.
But while labor looks like they're in a very good position, it's still, it's tightening up a little bit.
Close.
Well, it's 10 points, so that means 9% are undecided. Is that safe to say?
And what we've found consistently is that if you know what a right to work is, you're against it. If you don't know, then you could be for it or whatever. But most people outside of the urban areas, St. Louis and Kansas City, they don't know what a right to work is. If you're in rural Missouri, there's not a lot of union guys. You probably don't know your UPS driver's a Teamster.
Right.
So, but your UPS driver, they know they're a Teamster and they're not for right to work.
Yeah, it's interesting how all unions are sort of ganging up. Even as you mentioned, John Goodman, which SAG-AFTRA, right? That's the TV, radio, movie. Union is on the union side on this.
Yeah, but I think John Goodman's is kind of a blue collar guy.
No, yeah, right. But those ads are paid for by the SAG-AFTRA and whatever else.
Yeah. I believe all labor. You'll find as you get into labor politics a little deeper. Sometimes government unions, SEIU, AFSCME, kind of split a little bit from the trades, the guys that swing a hammer or the pipe fitters or whoever.
Right.
But on right to work, you'll find everybody is all on board, all on the same page, and all good to go.
Before we get to other numbers, the politics of this, who decided to put it on the August ballot? Was that Greitens?
So the unions went out and got over like 300,000 signatures. The unions have taken a beating during the Obama years. Normally when you have a president of one party, the state goes pretty hard to the other party. That's what's brought on these supermajorities of Republicans. Then Trump kind of bucked all the trends in all of politics. And people thought, well, unions in Missouri may be done. They were on this. They passed this in March. If they would have waited, you couldn't have put it on the ballot to where you had to vote no to vote yes.
The legislature passed it early, giving the unions time to mobilize to put this on the ballot.
Yes, and so then they put it on for November. Then there was a big conclave of Republicans that got together and said, excuse me, if we're going to beat Claire McCaskill, we got to move this off in November because every union guy comes out ticked off. So they moved it to August, basically to help the Senate race. And so they have it on in August. That was a Republican move to basically try to have a shot at beating Claire McCaskill.
Right, because if they would have put this in the November, it would have drummed up a lot more union support, and it would have helped get out the vote for the unions, which would more likely vote for Claire McCaskill.
Well, union guys, Trump proves this. You can't look at where union people live. Eastern St. Charles County, North County, South County, Jefferson County, and not see that union members have been voting Republican.
Yeah.
And I think they would elect a person like Representative Becky Ruth down in Festus, and she would not vote against labor, but she would vote for a speaker and a party that would end up voting against labor's interest. And when they got the governorship, they had the votes to pass any anti-labor measure they wanted for the most part, and they did.
Right.
And now the backlash. I think all of Missouri politics for the next probably 2 cycles is a labor guy from Jeffco that's been voting Republican. He's ticked off for the next 2 weeks. Does he stay ticked off till November? Does that carry forward? Does he keep voting Democrat? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, but I'm pessimistic that it lasts more than maybe just this November.
So you're saying 51 no, 49 41,
40 yes.
40 yes.
Oh, 40.
Which is up from, I believe it was 54-37 last time we polled it.
Oh.
So it is
okay.
tightening some.
All right. Now, Claire McCaskill, Josh Hawley, what do you got for that one?
Holly pulled up a point, +3, 48-45.
48-45, Hawley?
48-45, Holly.
Okay.
Holly moved up a point from 47-45. I think what you're seeing here is a dead close race.
Mm-hmm.
All going to be how does the movable folks from Jefferson County and the St. Charles area, West County maybe even because Claire McCaskill does get Republicans.
Right.
How do they swing at the end? It could be, I would say the demographic would be college-educated women that voted for Trump in an odd percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Do they stick with Trump? Do they make sure they show up and then do a get back? I think that's what could boil down to because it's so close.
Yeah.
Literally anything could swing that race at the end.
So you're
Josh,
saying the female vote could swing it.
the suburban female vote.
Well, I think you can even extrapolate a little more. The college-educated women probably are the key. In a race that's that tight, if you look at Donald Trump, he should not have gotten the percentage he gotten in Missouri. You can't get to +19 without getting an abnormal amount of college-educated women to vote for you. Now, I don't think a lot of them said they were, but I think if you were my prediction is if you were in a group of women around last October and they weren't openly saying Donald Trump is horrible, they probably voted for Donald Trump statistically. Now, will they vote for Claire McCaskill? They have in the past. Are they ticked off that maybe their vote for Trump didn't work out like they thought? With Donald Trump, it's hard because not everybody tells a pollster the truth because there's a lot of folks in pop culture and the media that will make you feel very bad about saying you're for Trump.
Right.
So people just don't say it. But last November, they voted for him.
Yeah. The Senate confirmation on Kavanaugh, Josh Hawley's making a big deal about that and Claire's opposition to that or perceived opposition to that and her vote probably against it or whatever. How much of that is moving the needle in all of this?
I think that it was the thing that saved Josh Hawley. There's a segment of Republicans, it gets lesser every day, but there's a segment of them that did not want him to prosecute or do any investigations on a Republican governor in Eric Greitens.
Right.
And they were mad. And they were, you should protect your own, whatever the rationale was for not prosecuting Republicans, they had it.
Right.
And it was their opinion. When this Supreme Court pick opened up, it's probably the best thing that's happened to the Hawley campaign. It has brought Republicans back home. You don't get to 48% without having most of your Republicans come back home. It has made people say, well, whatever about him, but I'm for Trump's pick. Although I do think they're running a dangerous game. Claire McCaskill is probably the most talented politician in the state.
Right.
I do not believe she'd be the 50th vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh. Would she be the 52nd or 3rd? Maybe. And if you're building the whole campaign up, and Josh Hawley has experience working at the Supreme Court, if the whole campaign is built up that she won't work with Republicans, she won't even vote for Trump's pick, which, let's be honest, if there was a referendum, should you confirm Donald Trump's pick, it would probably be 55-45 yes in the state.
Right.
I think you're dealing her all the cards.
Right.
And she could very easily say, you know what, I've thought about it, I will vote for him, and then what are you going to say?
Right.
I think they're dealing her a hand where I don't think she'll like it, but I think they are dealing her a play where she could get the right card on the river and win.
Scott Vaughn, what do you hear from Eric Greitens?
I understand he's taking a trip. I think he's being very low-key. And I think, there's a series of forces that I think could come together where if you're Eric Greitens, you weren't a Republican for very long, you could maybe tell some very interesting stories about the vice president's chief of staff. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, there's a whole bunch of folks in the national media in New York that would very much welcome a veteran Mother Teresa, Obama supporter who got caught up in the big Republican money machine and is now taking down people in the Trump administration. I think there's a lot of journalists in New York that'd be very open to that. Now, I don't know how you say it up here, but back home, what do we love more than a saint? A sinner come home. And I think there's some national media folks that might like a sinner come home. And
so you're floating the idea, and this is just all speculation and whatever else.
100%.
Right, yeah. That you wouldn't be shocked if he said, boy, I got caught up with the wrong people, and I'm really coming home to my roots as a Democrat.
I think he might remember some advice Mother Teresa gave him in Calcutta. And Go back to maybe he remembers part of Obama's speech he went and heard.
Right.
He could be reformed, and I think that there's a huge segment of the national media. They don't care what your background is. If you're anti-Trump and you have some goods on somebody in the Trump administration,
right,
they love you and they're going to believe you.
Hey, you know what? That's a really interesting take on it.
That is interesting.
Who is on this week in Missouri politics tomorrow?
We have the great
Or
right
Sunday.
to work debate.
Okay.
County Executive Steve Stenger debates State Senator Dave Schatz from Franklin County. Dave Schatz is a businessman, contractor. He's very pro right to work. Steve Stenger talks about how he remembers the vote in '78, the last time they voted on this, and how he held a sign in a picket line. So Steve Stenger is very much against right to work. It was really interesting. Two very smart leaders talking about an issue really professionally. It was really cool.
Whoa, wait, I thought you said two politicians talking a very thoughtful,
I swear,
smart
yelling?
debate. Really? That's weird.
I was thinking I'd had too many Budweisers beforehand, but I watched the tape back, and then we're going to tape a debate in the Senate District 14, kind of Clayton, U City area, really where the KTR studio is here recording in. It's Brian Williams, Joe Adams, and Sharon Pace. They are trying to pick up the legacy and mantle of Maria Chappelle-Nadal. So
She has a legacy.
I think, that she's really who you want to follow. It's like you want to follow
I
Conan
didn't know
O'Brien,
that.
you don't want to follow Johnny Carson. So they have a debate to replace her state Senate seat, which is right here.
Scott Vaughn, publisher of the Missouri Times. More poll numbers and more insights and all that stuff online?
Absolutely. We'll have a Stinger Montevioti polling later today at MissouriTimes.com.
Okay, and we should say the polling apparatus who you used.
We use Gravis polling this time.
Okay, and that's reputable. This is scientific polling, the whole deal, right?
Used all the time. They're out of Florida. The last polls we did were Remington out of Kansas City, so we try to split it up a little bit so you can get a flavor for different companies and how they survey Missouri.
Scott Vaughn, good to have you. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
7:32 here, Big 550, KTRS.
This is Democrat Bill Haas, and after my primary